Welcome in, everyone, to a special edition of the Fairgrounds Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Chad Schexnayder, and we have a special guest today, a very familiar name and face around these parts for a long time, trainer Sam David Jr. Mr. Sam, thanks for taking the time today.
Oh, enjoyed it.
I started working at the Fairgrounds in 1999 with Brian and Vicky, and coming out of college, going into the real world, it's my first real job, and I can honestly point to three trainers who right away made me feel welcome and treated me great. You, Neil Pessin, and Al Stahl Jr. And from the opening bell, you guys were always accommodating, whether it was for interviews or opening up your barns to the public, and in my case, the tours. Do you remember the tours?
Oh, yeah.
Remember those tours Vicky had? Vicky had the kids?
Had all the kids come back. That was a lot of fun. And it was pretty successful. The kids seemed to really enjoy it, so I was real happy with that.
They had to always have peppermints in the office for that,
yeah,
huh?
That's right.
Those always took place in the dark days. But, your training career spanned 6 decades, and just about all of it has been in Louisiana. But if you were a fan of racing back in 1972 at Calder Racecourse, or you happen to have a program from those days in South Florida, you may have run into Sam David Jr.
Yeah, my dad trained horses, so I grew up in the business, and that was my first year training in 1972. And it was, it was one of those deals where my dad would come out and help me all the time. So I didn't really know what I was doing that much, but he was hands-on and came out to the barn and helped me a lot. And we were very successful. We had a great summer that summer, and we ended up leading trainer down there. But it was really a fun year, and it kind of ruined me for getting away from the business. I thought it was easy then. But moved out to Louisiana in '85. Had a couple young boys then, and we came out to Louisiana Downs, and it was different than the Miami area. So we thought it'd be a great place to raise kids. So we settled out there.
What's something your dad taught you that's still relevant today in your life when it comes to the horse business?
My dad was great about doing things that a particular horse needed, and I've never really been able to get that knack down. I tried, but he had a knack of being able to look at a horse and watch him train for a little while and then say, why don't you try this on this horse? Just something off the wall that nobody else did with a horse, and it worked most of the time. It was just that horse pre-op scrub who comes to mind around people that were around your time up at Louisiana Downs, and he told me one day, he said, don't fight with that horse. He said, he's a big, long striding horse. Let him train. And he used to 2-minute lick about every day. And boy, finally we got him in going long a couple times, and he just kept on winning. He won a bunch of races that year. But it was just things like that he really was had a great knack of being able to pick out. Now you tried California with some horses too, right? When you moved out to California for a certain time, what did you learn out there? I was out there for about 4 years. There again, I was pretty early. I think I was 21 or 22 years old when I went out there. But it was, an experience that, you're around Charlie Whittingham and those guys, and you just, you pick up things from them that not that he came and told me, but I just watch them and see how they did things. And it was a great time in my life because I was out there for 4 years, and just, we didn't win a lot of races, but we held our own, and we're, like I said, the experience of going out there and racing with those guys. At that time, the California circuit was probably elite, so Frankel and Whittingham. I was about to say, that was the heyday of the Santa Anitas and the Del Mar. Hollywood Park even before Hollywood Park, right. So it was a lot of fun and a great experience. These last few years have kind of been a rebirth of sorts for you. 2010, I think you started 47 horses. And I don't want to say you retired after that, but maybe the next couple of years you shut down kind of the stable, you go to work for Copper Crown. But Sean took over, your son, and that kind of preempted that move. And then kind of take me through the middle of the 2010s to Sam David not being in the program to Sam David being back in the program. Yeah, Sean, great. He's another great horse trainer, 3rd-generation horse trainer, and he was training horses, and we were living in Bossier at the time, and we decided that to be around the kids and grandkids, we were going to move down to and start racing in Evangeline. So when we did, Sean said, why don't we kind of combine our outfit, and so we did that, and I thought it was a good idea. And then Sean kind of took over everything and did a great job. He's a great horse trainer. He just he had an opportunity to get into a different field, pharmaceutical field, and I thought it was a good deal because he had a couple young kids that on Christmas morning he had to go to the barn instead of hanging around with them on Christmas and things like that. So, and they didn't really, his wife didn't really understand the business that much. She had never been around it. So it's, unless you know the business, it's hard it's hard to make exceptions on how things should be running. But anyway, he took over for a few years, and I kind of worked with him a little bit, and then he decided, once he took that job, the Hernandez and John Duvial were looking for a trainer. Their trainer decided to retire, so they asked me if I would be interested in. At the time, Sean had already gone back to work, and I didn't have many horses, and I thought, well, that'd be, I'll try it for a year, so I'll come back out, and it's really worked out good. These guys are super. They're breeders. They know every end of the business. They've been in it for a long, long time, and they know, the ins and outs of it, so you don't have to break in a new owner and try to teach them the business as you're doing it. So it's really worked out well. They send me in 12 to 15 2-year-olds every year, which is something that I've always loved, being around the young horses, and it gives me an opportunity. They upgrade their breeding program every year, and it gives me an opportunity to come up with a nice Louisiana bred. So
we in the press box call those three guys the three amigos.
Yeah,
because you see their name and they're always together.
Exactly.
Where's their farm at?
It's right there in Folsom. It's close. It's not a real big show place. They do it all the work. You go out there on a Sunday and they're all out there working on the fences and things like that. They're not a real show place, but they run a great farm, and they do a great job as far as raising babies.
So you're able to stay obviously here in the wintertime, and you've moved to Opelousas as well. You have a home up there, so it's kind of Evangeline in the summer, Fairgrounds winter, spring, and you get to just go back and forth from there. Huh?
Yeah, being with that many Louisiana breds, I have probably 36 here, and I think 34 of them are Louisiana breds. So I pretty much stay in Louisiana as much as I can.
The 36 here, probably close to 30 of them are for them.
Yes, they are. I think 31 or 32 belong to the Hernandez and Duvial.
So something that handicappers, I think, especially down here, have recognized when they're reading the form. Sam David is one of those Louisiana guys, I think, like Fauché, Shane Wilson, like the Delomes, that kind of point to the start of the Fairgrounds meet. You get your horses ready right when the Fairgrounds meet opens, and I'm going to give you kind of a case in point. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but Delta starts their meet in early October. I noticed you ran 5 horses in October at Delta. Now, after Evangeline ends in August, you didn't even run a horse in September. So 5 horses run in October, and 50, their names were and 50, he ran 8th. Anders Smile, Dreaming of Niani, Golden Confusion, and Trader Price. So and 50 ran 8th at Delta. He comes back to win at Fairgrounds. Anders Smile ran 8th at Delta. He comes back and runs a very solid 3rd here last week, but he was very well meant. And you have 3 more. Does Sam David use Delta as a little prep maybe to get the Fairgrounds horses ready?
Yeah, the last couple of years we've really kind of, even halfway through the Evangeline meet, we start gearing them down, giving them a little break for the Fairgrounds. The whole idea was to have a horse fresh and ready to come in here when we do start running, mainly because of the purse structure. But they live here, and they're looking forward to having a great meet here, and I am also. I've been coming here a long time, so right. I kind of want to make a big a splash as I can around here. But we've done that the last couple of years, and it's worked well for us. Last year we had a great meet here, and we tried to go with the same program. And like you said, Delta is it's really not. It's hard to get if you're not training over that race, it's hard to get a horse ready to run over there anyway. So we just kind of use it for a prep race for here, and it's worked out well.
I want you to touch on that a little bit, just on the Delta. How different is Delta from Fairgrounds?
Oh, I think it's extremely different. You got a small track, you got a 3/4 mile track, and you got a real deep sandy surface, which is something that if you don't have a horse that really likes it and a horse that's training on it, I think it's very hard to get one legged up enough to really perform good over it. And it's kind of, it's a little scary going over there to run sometimes. You don't know whether you're helping one or hurting one by going there and getting a race into them.
So 2 winners here at the Fairgrounds meet that have really caught the eye. Let's talk a little bit about Hard 4. That was a 3-year-old firster that romped home last week, a hard-spun Louisiana bred out of a Grand Slam mare. Pays 9-2 on the tote board, but late in the year for a 3-year-old to make a debut. Talk about his development and maybe why it took so long for him to come around.
Yeah, he's a horse that always showed a lot of ability. I've had him, seems like I've had him for 3 or 4 years, but anyway, he showed ability, but just one minor problem after the next. He was close to running here last year, and he came up with
2 quarter cracks, and had to back off him for that. And the owner was patient enough to give him the time. I said he's got talent, but I said he's just going to be hard to get there. And so it was well worth the wait. I think he's going to, he seemed to come out of this first race real good. He ran impressive and came out of it good. So being a Louisiana bred, I think he could have a good meet here and make some money.
What about Go Sugar? Look, this is an exciting 2-year-old prospect, Go Sugar, spelled the Louisiana way, yeah. Geaux. You gelded him already, so that says something, I think. I think his race over the weekend is going to end up being a very key race. This is one a half hour's 2-year-old. Talk about him.
He's shown speed all along, and we were a little suspect of how far he would go, but he's always shown a lot of speed for us. And when we left there the other day, I told Deshaun, I said, this horse is going to put you on. Put him out there. I said you might have to get off and carry him the last 1/8 of a mile, but he'll have you where you want to be. So, and he did. I mean, he ran up to what we thought he would do. So, we're excited about him. I think we're going to try to go in the futurity with him. If things work out well between here and there, but that's probably going to be our next step with him. But he's gonna be. I think he'll be a pretty decent horse.
Looks like a nice horse.
Yeah.
And I know there's some horses that ran behind him that some of the connections were very high on. So,
yeah.
We'll
that's what Ron told me. Ron said
I think Ron told everybody that about that horse. So that ran second to Go Sugar. But Dreaming of Niani's one that loves it here at Fairgrounds. 5 starts. She has 2 wins, a second and a third. She won the Crescent City Oaks here back in March. She paid nice that day too, but we just talked about it. She's going to skip Champions Day.
Yeah, she's going to skip Champions Day. She actually kind of hurt herself when we did get a race into her at Delta, and that's keeps coming into my mind when we say we ran a horse at Delta. She just minor injury over there, and it's kind of backed off her a little bit. But she's a real nice filly. She's well bred. She's distorted humor, and for a Louisiana bred, she's got some pedigree and she's got a lot of talent. She was a little slow coming around, but she finally put it all together for us here late last year.
Good deal. We're going to take a break right here. When we come back, we'll talk about one of the best fillies to ever be on the Fairgrounds Oval. We'll be talking Blushing KD with her trainer, Sam David Jr., right after this. FB Winners. Kenny Schmidt, my capper on the coast, has a special Fairgrounds podcast deal. For $150, you'll get both the NFL and college football picks through the Super Bowl. Prime selections only at FB Winners on Twitter. Kenny's DMs are open. You've heard Kenny Schmidt on the Fairgrounds Racing podcast last year before the Louisiana Derby. This guy's special. He gives out winners to everybody. And if you sign up, mention the Fairgrounds podcast, and Kenny will give you horse racing plays through December. Spot plays at the Fairgrounds through December for $150. You get National Football League, college football, through the Super Bowl, plus horse racing. Nothing better than that. Check them out at FB Winners on Twitter.
If you live in Louisiana, you know the way to a person's heart is through their stomach, and Louisiana Craft Butchers has the map to get there. From their large selection of smoked hams and turkeys to deli meats to boudin, give them a call at 504-466-9788 or check them out online at lacraftbutchers.com. Give your request in early, as all orders are on a first-come, first-served basis. These hams are cured, spiral cut, and injected with Steen's cane syrup before being smoked. Your choice of 8 or 10 pound hams are available. If turkey is your thing, these turkeys are bathed in brine for 6 days before being smoked in pecan wood. 10 or 15 pound turkeys are available while they last. If you want to impress your friends and family this holiday season, you need to let Louisiana Craft Butchers do the talking. Check them out at lacraftbutchers.com.
If you like to bet on football, college, and or NFL, please check out the website, www.meatandpotatoesusa.com. Our consultants are hitting 63% against the spread this season. Don't miss out. Tommy Krysan, Trey Blossman, Anthony Gallo, these guys are the experts. This is what they do. Check them out for pro and college picks. That's www.meatandpotatoesusa.com. This century, the Fairgrounds has produced plenty of Kentucky Oaks winners, and the road to that race has really run through New Orleans. But back in 1997, a filly by the name of Blushing KD, trained by Sam David Winnard here in New Orleans, and the team behind her, caught lightning in a bottle, and Blushing KD took them all the way to the first Friday in May. Blushing KD, all horses have great stories, Mr. Sam, but this one starts with you and the Fairgrounds sales. You bought her for $25,000, but she didn't even work for the sale. So tell us early on about Blushing KD.
Yeah, she was. I guess it was a stroke of luck how we ended up with her, but they were bringing the babies in that were in the sale about a week or so out, and Alice Cohn had her in her consignment there, and I just happened to be watching her train, and she was just had a more than she wasn't a real pretty mover and all that stuff that you normally look for in a horse. She kind of was a little on the light side and just wasn't real impressive, but she had something. In watching her training, she had something about her attitude that was just kind of stood out to me. And the Burnses came in for the sale like they had in the past, and we were looking at babies, and I said, let's go just look at this baby in the backside. I said, she didn't do anything but gallop, but let's go look at her. And she, when we brought her out of the stall, she gave that same air, like, here I am, and so, and I kind of said, man, I really like that. If she doesn't go for very much money, I think we ought to take a shot on this filly. And we ended up doing that, and she just, she won her first start for us, and then she won a little stake at Shreveport, and we gave her a little time off till we came down here. When we did come down here, we were trying to make the sales stake that they had here at that time, and it was going long, and her defeat here, she had everything going against her. I mean, I was kind of rushed when we brought her back. I was kind of trying to hurry her to get to the race, and I worked her a couple times, and she was working. She always worked good, but she just was a little behind schedule. So I came up with a great idea of running her an allowance race against colts, against everything that could go wrong. And then we come into the paddock, and at that time, it was right after the fire, and we had the tents. We saddled in the tents. And when she walked into the tent, it was like a bomb went off in there. I mean, she had never been inside an enclosed tent before, and man, she was raring up and fighting with us and washing out. And like I said, everything that could go wrong was going wrong and going into that race. But anyway, she ran up, I think, a fourth or a fifth, just not a pitiful race, but it was really a race that we were trying to get ready to go long the next 2 weeks later. So,
well, I thought it was interesting too. You got her for $25,000, right?
Yep.
Didn't you bring her to Keeneland and she RNA'd for $32,000? Is that right?
No, that was before. They did that.
Before they brought her to the Fairground sales.
Brought her to sales.
Okay, so they took her down to the Fairground sales after she RNA'd.
After she had RNA'd up there
for $32,000.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, talking about her early career, he started like you said, Louisiana Downs, and I think a big part of this story really is Lonnie Mesh too, because Lonnie was a young rider back then, and he was hungry, he was looking for his chances, and you put him on at Louisiana Downs. That first race was September of her 2-year-old year. It was August, actually. I think it was August. Yes, it was August of 1996. And she won by a neck. She was one of the only first-time starters in the race. She paid 7-1. Going into that race, did you guys kind of know, hey, we got a live one here, or was this kind of give her one and see what happens?
No, we felt like she could win it. It was. I mean, you hesitate anytime you got a first-time starter going in a race like that. But she had been working good enough for us. So it's like my brother told me. He said, "Well, if she doesn't win this, then we're going to have a long year because this is the best one we got." So
right.
So it's worked out well. And then, like I said, she came back and won the stake right after the next race.
She did
started.
pay the same thing. She wins easy, so she's 2 for 2. Like you said, everything went kind of berserk in that race in January. But you regroup, and this is kind of a testament to. So this is the beginning of 1997. Now we're talking about a Kentucky Oaks winner that loses an allowance race in January. But then, I mean, she went berserk. I mean, February 9th, you bring her back for the Sales Derby. I think that was the one against the Colts, right? Yep. You had to run against Colts in there. And this is, I think, where she comes on the scene. You run her 2 turns in this race, February 9th, and she blows the competition away. It was like Rachel Alexandra's Oaks. She wins by 20.
Yeah. She was, you know, the middle move she had that day and throughout her career was unbelievable. I mean, she was toyed with the horses down the backside, and then when Lonnie asked her to run around the turn, she just kept on widening on them, and it just opened up before they knew it hit them, really. And you know, it was a fairground sales futurity, so we were, even though it was impressive, we were still a little worried about the competition and the competition we were going to have to face after that. But she just blossomed and got better and better.
I don't understand. You never see a horse win by 20 and pay $8.20.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
Usually the ones that win by 20 are paying $2.60 or something, you know.
And I think a lot of that had to do with that prep that I put into her.
The PPs didn't do her justice in that race for sure.
That's right.
So you bring her back 2 weeks later. I mean, this is the time when, you know, trainers and owners, they ran their horses back in 2 weeks, and she comes back into Devona Dale, which is the prep for the Fairgrounds Oaks. Another mile and 16th on the dirt. You catch a 6-horse field in here. It looks like Neil Howard had Tommy Sue's Delight, who became a kind of a rival to her a little bit. But she comes back into Devona Dale, and Lonnie guides her to victory that day pretty easily.
Yeah. She Tommy Sue's Delight kept scaring us because she was always running second to her, and she had a big finish. You know, she always had a big run through the lane, so we were always worried about holding her off. But she had. Blushing Katie had her numbers, and even Neil called me up and said, "Man, I don't want to face her anymore."
But she does.
Yep.
She comes back at the Fairgrounds Oaks, and it was a Fairgrounds field. No ship-ins for this race. The Fairgrounds field, a 5-horse field in the Fairgrounds Oaks. Back then, look, 1997. This is a Grade 3, $175,000 purse in 1997.
Back in those days,
yeah, $175,000 purse. She wins off pretty easily, and the public finally caught up because she paid $280 in the Fairgrounds Oaks. They knew who she was then.
Yeah.
But then, you know, these days you win the Fairgrounds Oaks, you go straight to the Kentucky Oaks, and you kind of wait. She went to Oaklawn and said, "Hey, let's see what you got in Oaklawn."
Yeah, and that was an impressive race. So Gina was in there, and there were several other horses that had chipped in there. And it was she ran. She didn't get away real good that day, and she kind of Lonnie had to rush her down the backside a little bit, but she, you know, it's like I said, she had a great middle move, and once she did that, then she was a lot of heart holding horses off.
We're going to talk about Agena a little bit, because Agena ended up being the champion 3-year-old filly. You beat her at Oaklawn in the fantasy. She ran 6, beaten 14 and something lengths by Blushing KD. We'll get to that in a minute, but then you win that one. So now you got a little win streak going. You show up in Kentucky. You're at the Kentucky Oaks. I've heard you say that was your first time at Churchill Downs, correct?
Yeah, first time at
Churchill Downs.
Yep.
And I can kind of appreciate this because Sean and I are almost the same age, so I can imagine what it was for your family and him and his friends being a 20-year-old right around that time and just starting to party. But you guys did throw a party when Blushing KD won. It was May 2nd, 1997. It was very windy that day, and I went back and watched it on YouTube, and I was looking at Dave Johnson and Kate and those people. It was rainy, but you guys got the lilies with Blushing KD. Talk to me about that day, because I think it's very important to bring up too. She's the oldest filly to ever win the Kentucky Oaks. Still, she was a June 1st foal.
Yeah.
No horses won the Oaks being a June foal.
Wow.
So I didn't know if you knew that or not.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
No.
So tell me about that day.
Oh, that was an unbelievable day. We had all our kids and all the Burns' kids, and I mean, we had a group up there that was a lot of fun, and we went. We always spent all our time around the barn. Everybody else went to the parties and things like that the night before, but we spent our time around the barn, and then we just went back with the family and we stayed there, and so we just spent a lot of time, rather than which. Nobody really invited me to a party, I don't think. But anyway.
Who's Sam Davis?
Yeah. But anyway, we had a great trip. The day of the race, it was a nice morning. Everything was good. And, I remember as we're in the paddock, it started sprinkling a little bit, and then it started raining when they were on the track. But it didn't really affect the track that much. But after the race, it was coming down real good. And I think Jim ran down the track to meet Blushing Katie and Lonnie, and she kind of wheeled a little bit and bumped him, and he went down in the mud. And,
he did a Kim Ramsey.
Exactly. And then, in the winner's circle, the kids were all going crazy and doing the pushing the roof and all that stuff. So, but it was really a fun trip. And you can imagine the time we had as far as, like you said, the kids were all there and young and stuff. So
right.
really a fun time.
I've been there for Oaks Day, and it's a fun day, and it's definitely one of those times you definitely remember. Talk about before the Oaks. I think she was offered about $1.5 million, something like that, before the Oaks, and the ownership group, and it works out for you because they said no.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
who knows what would have happened to her in this day and age? But she was offered a lot of money, not only after the Oaks but before the Oaks.
Yeah. That before the Oaks, it was 1-point-something million, and then after the Oaks, I remember
one of the Sheiks, right?
Yeah, Lori Kahn was working with the Sheiks there, who had Sharp Cat in the race, and Lori came and grabbed me and says, "You think they'd be interested in selling that filly?" And I said, "Well, how much you talking?" And he said, "Don't worry about the price. If they want to sell her, we're going to buy her."
Right.
So I went back and told the Burns that, and they said, "Nah, we don't want to sell her." So they said, "That's all we got in life, pretty much." So, and they were enjoying it.
That field of the Kentucky Oaks, that was a very salty field that day. Tommy Sue's Delight, she comes closing under Pat Day. Sharp Cat really helped. Blushing KD was going to win, but she made sure kind of Blushing KD was going to win because Sharp Cat got Sharp Cat veered out and she actually got taken down in the race. She finished third but got taken down. She hit Glitter Woman, who was the favorite under Mike Smith, and forced her out. But there was 4 Grade 1 winners in that race.
It was a tough race. They had the Glitter Woman from the East Coast who had been winning everything at Gulfstream. Sharp Cat from the West Coast that was who was winning everything on the West Coast. And then you had some nice horses in between, and including Blushing KD, who was mid states and fairgrounds mostly, and then it was really a great race. Really, the quality they had in that race, it was really a great race.
I mean, you're looking at Neil Howard had a horse in there, D. Wayne Lucas, Nick Zito, that was during his prime. Carl Nasker had one in there. Shug McGahee, Hall of Fame trainer. So it's not like you beat a bunch of tomato cans.
No, that was a good group. That was a good group.
So 2 weeks later, you come back into Pimlico and you run her into Black Eyed Susan. You've kind of gone on record already saying that was kind of on you, why she didn't run good that day. Tell me kind of what happened there.
I don't know what happened, to tell you the truth. It was probably the worst training mistake I've ever made. She had already had a hard campaign, and I think I was just kind of, they can't beat us anymore,
Right.
Attitude, and I should have never shipped her back there. I should have given her a little time off right then. But anyway, she got beat in that race, and she kind of had a reaction. Probably just the Lasix kind of got to her a little bit, and because of that many races in a row. And
well, you kind of scared some people off because Buckeye Search was the only one that came back from the Oaks 2 weeks later to run in that race, and you had beaten her 20 lengths or whatever it was in that race. But you kind of regroup after that. You take her up to Monmouth Park July 4th weekend, and you cash a check. You get the money in the Grade 2 Monmouth Breeders' Cup Oaks.
Yeah, she came back after a small layoff. She came back and ran a great race there. And that day, she handled the field real easy and ran her normal race. She moved big on the mid-turn and just kept on running. So that was, it was a lot of anxiety because she had run so bad in the Black Eyed Susan, but at the same time, seeing her do it again, we felt like we were back with her.
I feel like Lonnie Mesh's career really kind of took off after that because he went on to win a couple of Fairgrounds jockeys titles, and he kind of proved in that race. He was riding against Pat in the Oaks. I'm talking about Pat Day, Gary Stevens, Jerry Bailey, Corey Nakatani. I mean, these guys were Robbie Alvarado's winning like crazy back then, and did Lonnie ever say something to you like, "Man, Mr. Sam, this is the best thing I ever had in my life"? I mean, he had to be so appreciative.
Yeah, well, he was. He was, and that I gave the Burns a lot of credit. They a lot of people would have gone to a bigger named rider, and they talked to me about it, and they said, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, Lonnie's been working her since before she ever ran. I said he knows her well. I said, and he hadn't really made any real mistakes on her. I said, I'm one of those guys that believes if there's nothing wrong with it, don't fix it. And I said, if he makes a mistake or rides a bad race, then we can look at it. But I said, so far he knows her so well and she responds for him good. I said, let's just stay with her, and they did.
You had another filly that year in 1997 that did some running. Didn't like Fairgrounds too much, but she loved Remington, she loved Louisiana Downs, and I think it's a great name. Full as a Tick.
Yeah, she was an interesting horse. She was. I picked her up at Louisiana. At Lone Star, and the gentleman sent her in, and she had it was a weird deal. She wasn't really running that well, but she had an ovary that was bothering her and we ended up taking the ovary out, and that was one of my dad's type thing.
I've actually never heard that in a horse before. Taking
yeah,
an ovary.
You removed one ovary from her, and it was bothering her to a point where she couldn't really perform that well, and she just turned the corner on her, and she ran. I had a great couple of year career. I mean, couple big years. You know, she won the River City, I think, and
a couple times.
Yeah, a couple times, and so.
So let's go on to a couple more subjects. We're coming up here on December 5th at the fairgrounds, and I think around here, and we might just call it Sam David Day. December 5th last year, you entered 5 horses here. One of them scratched from the AE list, and I've heard when the barn is going good, and I heard you say this, when the barn's going good, you can take the pony over there, lead him over, and he'll probably win. You went 4 for 4 last year, December 5th. Four wins in a day. Jockeys do it all the time. Not all the time, but when they have a chance, they can do it. Marcelina Pedrosa was that day. You won 4 races here at the fairgrounds. That had to be something out of it. You had to be in the clouds over there.
Yeah, that was a special day, and that was just one of those days where we couldn't do anything wrong. Horses, they were all live, obviously, but you just very seldom have everything go right in every race that you're in. Right. And when you run 4, you figure if you win 2, you're doing real good.
Yep.
But when they all 4 of them won that day, it was something really special. We were on cloud 9.
I'm not sure if we run December 5th this year, but I'm gonna check the program and see if there's any Sam David horses running on December 5th.
I'm gonna do some kind of gambling that day.
That's a good idea. Well, when you're 3 for 3, and you actually had a horse in the last race that day. I mean, when you're 3 for 3, do you just tell Marcelina, hey man, don't mess this up?
Yeah. I didn't really give him any instructions. I wouldn't have known what to tell him. Marcelino usually rides his race anyway. He doesn't. He doesn't. He's a good rider, and he does a great job for us. So.
Speaking of days in December, we're coming up to an infamous day here in the history of this place. Around New Orleans, it's kind of referred to simply as the fire. That's how people know about it. Just like Katrina is referred to now as the storm. You talk about the storm before and after the storm. The fire here at the fairgrounds. Katrina is like 2 lifetimes for us adults. It's before the storm and after the storm. And I think for fairgrounds people who've been here a while, you had before the fire and after the fire. I was young. I was a young adult then. I remember, the fairgrounds fire being December 17th and coming home from college. I was coming home from Lafayette, and I remember seeing it on the news, the smoke and everything going up that day. What do you remember about that night and kind of what followed?
Actually, it was my birthday.
Oh, wow.
And we were all out to eat. Not all. We had several people out to eat. And as we're eating, I guess we were talking horse racing, and the waiter came over to the table and said, I heard you guys talking about horse racing. There's a big fire going on at the fairgrounds. Well, I naturally was worried about the backside. That was the first thing that came to my mind. So I jumped in the car and ran to the barn and made sure everything was okay there, which it was. But then sat there and watched from the backside over here and watched the fire. And it was heartbreaking how fast it went up and how, geez. You wonder if it'll ever come back, and I thought the Crances did a fantastic job of putting their shoulder to the wheel and getting the thing going. And, a lot of people wouldn't have moved that fast, but they knew we were stuck here with no place to go, and they made some different kind of arrangements and stuff. So it was really a good job on their part.
Yeah, definitely something. Took a couple years, but now we have a beautiful track here, and hopefully never have to go through something like that again.
That's right.
For sure.
Nobody has to go through that.
Now, you've been around Louisiana a long time. I want to ask you a couple of questions real quick. Best Louisiana bred that you've ever seen?
Wow.
I can tell you mine while you think about this.
Okay.
I liked Hello Dreams. Hello Dreams. She was unbelievable running filly, and when she walked around the paddock here, she almost looked like she was sleeping.
Yeah.
And then she got on the track, and she just abused other horses. And she went on like a 17 race.
I think, yeah.
17 wins in a row. She wasn't running for a lot of money back in those days, but she's one of my favorite all time. And obviously there's, Happy Ticket, Star Guitar. Scott Scoundrel was a millionaire for a long time. But who do you remember really?
I remember Archie's horse, and I can't think of his name right now, but Archie had a horse, and I can't think of his name, but he won. He was winning everything. Louisiana bred.
Czar's Magic? Not Czar's Magic.
No, that was Borum, but I can't think of his name. But he was winning every Louisiana bred race there was back in those days. But that was, that was late '80s, I guess. So, But the ones you mentioned, shoot, they've been some good ones come out of there.
Yep.
One of my favorites, of course, I owned a piece of her was Placid Star.
Right.
She won 9 straight and then got beat.
You had a 9-race streak?
Yeah, she had 9. She won 9 straight and then got beat. But
here's something I like to ask trainers. Has Sam David been put up more times in a race or taken down more times in a race?
I'm sure it's about even, but I think I agree with Steve when you don't remember the times they put you up, but you sure remember the times they take you down.
No doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and last year I had a couple of those that were we came down, and I had my grandkid's horse taken down twice in a row here. So,
did you really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
A horse called Courtman, and I didn't agree with either call.
What's one of the craziest things you ever seen in a race? I mean, you've seen animals on the track, you've seen this and that.
Yeah.
But anything kind of stands out to you in kind of a crazy race that you win, or?
Probably not that I was in, but one of the craziest things I saw, I thought, was when Cadero got bounced off his horse and ran down the rail and jumped back on, and ended up they didn't give him the win because he was off the horse for a while. But things like that are amazing to me. How a jockey and the horse's athletics abilities are something that you can't believe.
I know both your sons into the game. Your oldest son, you said, really didn't catch the training bug too much, but he likes to gamble. He likes to bet on this and that.
He loves to go to the races.
Loves to go to the races. That's a good way of saying loves to go to races.
Yeah.
Loves to get to the windows too.
Yeah.
I certainly agree with that. But have you ever been a gambler when it comes to your horses, or do you like to handicap and bet them, or you just like to kind of handicap the puzzle?
When I was younger, I used to bet every race every day. We didn't have all the simulcasting, but at the track, I'd bet every race every day. And then finally the light went off and said, this isn't working too good for you. So, but I still, when I get a horse that I know, there's a reason why his form might be bad, or, something, we changed something on him that we thought really worked, and then I'll step out and bet a few dollars on him, but not much.
You're not a big social media guy, right? No Twitter, no Facebook, all these Sean was no Instagram, stuff like that. Old school trainer, Sam David Jr. Really appreciate you doing this on the podcast here for the Fairgrounds. That'll kind of do it for me. Thanks for taking a trip down memory lane with me.
Thanks, enjoyed it.
All right, that'll do it for us. Check out for Sam's horses this week at the meet. You got a lot running. You got a lot running this week, right?
Some shots.
Got some shots. So be sure to check them out. We'll be back on the podcast network next week. More Fairgrounds content as Mikey D and myself will come to you next week with Louisiana Champions Day preview. And in the meantime, follow me on Twitter at Schexnayder. And for everything Fairgrounds related, go to Fairgrounds at Fairgrounds NOLA on Twitter. Best of luck this weekend, everybody, and we'll see y'all next week.